Hey up guys, what's going on and welcome to the one club per city experiment where every city in England now is only allowed one club. Yes, that means every London club is now just London, merged into one. You may notice it says West London on the right hand side. That's because I did give them four in the initial plans of this, North, East, South and West, and then I just decided that's not enough for a radical change. So now they're all just one as well. It's just London. I've gone harsh on that one. Basically, the rule on London is anything inside the M25. The rule on Manchester is anything inside the M60, I think it is. The ring road there, basically. Leeds, a couple of lower League Ones got absorbed into them. But essentially, all the way down to the Vanarama North and South, there's now only one club per city. I've only loaded this to League 2 just in case I've made any mistakes in annihilating the clubs that got shifted out of the top six divisions, top six tiers. In case they sneak their way back into those lower ends. They should be annihilated. I got rid of their entire reputation, their entire finances, and the entire club staff and players, basically. Everything to do with those clubs is now nothing, basically. They should not make their way back into this anyway, but just in case, it's only gone down to League 2 on this particular loading. I have loaded the top 5 normal European things just so transfers can happen properly, a little bit easier, whilst maintaining a fast simulation speed. Because, of course, I need to get through some years on this. But first and foremost, I need to show you most of those clubs that have been merged. Now, you look at the Premier League, obviously, a lot of Birmingham has been merged into Aston Villa. I say a lot of Birmingham. It's basically just Jude Bellingham. Sorry, Birmingham. I won't go into that one into too much detail. In terms of teams that have been moved up by the absence of clubs that were here, Bristol, Cardiff, Derby, Leeds, Middlesbrough make it, along with Swansea and West Bromwich. Now, they're not in Birmingham technically, so they do get to be their own thing. I did O&R on that one, but they are outside Birmingham. They are not counted as being in Birmingham, unlike Aston Villa and Birmingham. Nottingham Forest, well, Nottingham can feel a little bit hard done by this. By the way, they just miss out on terms of reputation. That's why I used, by the way, in terms of moving clubs up, was just purely on the club's reputation. And Nottingham's is 50 less than Middlesbrough and a couple of others. So, a bit unfortunate on that front. But we're just going to go into the major merged ones now, just to show you how these things work. Now, obviously, I haven't changed a few things like club captains. That's a bit of a mistake. Their budget is a little bit ridiculous in the sense that their wage bill is insane because, well, I didn't change any of that. 3 goalkeepers, Hugo Lloris and Kepa have the highest current abilities out of all the goalkeepers in London. Lucas Fabianski was just a judgment call in the sense of being the most logical third choice goalkeeper, i.e. still decent, but nowhere near on the level of the main ones. Bernd Leno, obviously, missing out as a result. It just felt a bit weird having Leno, Lloris and Kepa as the 3 goalkeepers. I wanted there to be a clear hierarchy there. Same as going all the way through. There's players like Lucas Moura who have lost out in this regard. I wanted there to be a clear hierarchy. So there's going to be good starters and there's going to be young players with potential. That consideration was made when merging the squads. In defence, you've got Alderweireld, Zuma. That one was a bit 50-50. Rudiger, Vertonghen, Bellerin, a right back. Aurier just squeaks in as a third choice right back, essentially. Christensen, again, another on the line one. Tomori, Tierney at left back, of course, Azpilicueta. And there's actually defenders already missing on that regard. So Sessegnon's still here. Reece James at right back also exists as well. So like I say, there's some younger players who may have just been shunted into youth teams as a result straight away. But midfield, Kovacic, Jorginho, Kante, Lo Celso. And actually, a lot of the midfielders have also been moved immediately straight away by a lot of things. So Torreira, Ndombele, Guendouzi and Declan Rice all made the cut. And then in terms of the attacking midfield, you got Willian, Zaha, the only person to make it from Crystal Palace, Bergwijn, Son Heung-min, Pulisic is there, Ozil as well. For some reason, Dele Alli is missing at this stage, along with Mason Mount, Hudson-Odoi, and Pepe all made the cut. So there's some of them not here. Pepe's actually moved further down. And then in terms of striking, Kane, Lacazette, I actually was intending to cut him in the final cut of everything, but forgot. Lacazette, Aubameyang, and Abraham, of course, Troy Parrott still here as well as a lot of the youth prospects of these squads as well. A lot of Arsenal's youngsters are going to be I'm going to presume, under 23s. Yeah, so actually, by virtue of being 23 at the start of the game, that's where Dele Alli found himself. And you can see there Pablo Fornals, Sanchez, Martinelli, Sessegnon, Kina, Nketiah, Steven Sessegnon, and a bunch of the youth prospects all the way going down. You may recognise some of these names from your saves when you try to load them in, whatever. So the under 23s is ridiculous, basically. When it comes to Manchester, obviously I merged into Pep Guardiola and Manchester City in that regard. They're the most reputable ones, and you can already see a few Man United players, but probably not as many as Man United fans would like. Yeah, so same situation. I didn't actually cut players out of this one quite as much. So Edson and De Gea are both here. That's going to be interesting to work out what happens here. Otamendi, Maguire, Stones, Laporte, Kyle Walker, Wan-Bissaka made the cut. It was more a case of just moving Man United players across that actually made the cut and could actually fit in the team. Bruno Fernandes, of course, Paul Pogba, naturally, Rashford and Martial as well. I'm not sure if there's any youngsters that have just been missed out on that front. Some of the younger ones, obviously like Dalot, Laird, they're in the youth setup. But Man United, not as many as probably you would expect to go across. Again, that was mostly done on current ability, and of course when it comes to Liverpool, there's sadly not a lot that moves across from Everton. Just Jordan Pickford, essentially, and Yerry Mina, I think. Digne as a solid backup to out Robertson. That's quite interesting, because I do notice on Liverpool's thing, they quite often sign Grimaldo as a left back. Not just a left back, just pretty much Grimaldo. And a few of the youngsters as well. Bernard, Iwobi, Richarlison, Andre Gomes as well. Another solid option in that midfield. And again, they had a couple of youngsters to move across, Lewis Gibson, for instance. But by and large of things, not a lot of change there. And pretty much for most of the other merged clubs, the little ones that moved into Leeds, the Bristol Rovers moving into Bristol, basically none of their squads actually got anywhere near those. And yeah, so like I say, the only real notable one is, of course, Jude Bellingham moving into Aston Villa or Birmingham as a whole. So I'll just click through the other 3 divisions, and then I will just simulate a year and bring you back to find out what happens. And then, of course, I will do further iterations as a separate video going forward. But the Championship looks like this. Now, there's some very actually surprising ones in the Championship. Stoke just miss out. That was actually a bit of a coin toss. They're on the same reputation level as a couple of ones that did get promoted up, but they just lost out. Sorry, Stoke fans. In low likelihood, you'll probably get promoted straight away, in fairness, because, well, that's the Championship, and there's some very, very surprising ones. And like I say, because this is based on reputation, some of them have lingering reputations from their time in the past. Like Bradford, who moved from League 2 to the Championship. Bolton, of course, in major danger, but they move up to the Championship. Portsmouth, of course, move up as a result, same kind of deal. Sunderland, straight up again, of course, as well. MK Dons, other notable ones in here. Burton, yes, Blackpool, of course, former Premier League as well. So there's a lot of former Premier League clubs that move straight into the Championship as a result of this. One of the more surprising ones, Shrewsbury. I didn't expect them to have the reputation they had. Sorry, Shrewsbury fans. I was a little bit surprised. League 1 looks a bit like this, and not as much surprise in this one. It's just mostly, obviously, League 2 teams moving upwards. And obviously, the further we go down, the more clubs have been absorbed. So there's going to be more new faces in each division as we go down. In all honesty, I'm not really sure who is here and isn't here originally now. Teams like Carlisle and Cambridge, I know they've moved up. But League 1 and League 2 interchange so much in terms of promotion relegation. I'm not entirely certain who starts the year here anymore. Scunthorpe, I know, have moved up, for instance. And then League 2 is quite a lot of Vanarama teams. The main one in terms of League 2, in fact, is York's reputation being good enough to shove them straight from Vanarama North to League 2. And that does explain quite a lot in terms of my actual York save going on at the moment. And actually, I can cheat my way into looking at the Vanarama by going by stadiums. There's a few teams here that have moved up from Vanarama North and South, basically. I try to be as even as possible on that front, and especially when you go into the Vanarama North and South, going further forward. But obviously a lot of smaller ones. Dartford is the only concession I made in terms of the M25 one, because they're technically in a different county, whilst just being inside the M25. And it's not actually the M25 where Dartford is either. It's a gap. So that's the only one I kind of let slip by, partially by accident, but I can understand why I missed it. And then North is a lot of ones like Grantham, Whitby make it in here. I did make one concession in terms of reputation, and that's sneaking Bury in as the last club I moved up. Their reputation of the secondary club there was lower than others, but I let them go into the Vanarama North just because. But yeah, that's what the Vanarama North looks like. Lower stuffed, just there because there's always one in the wrong division. And then South looks a lot like this. A lot of Southwest teams like Western-super-Mare, Truro, Bognor Regis, for instance, Poole on the south coast, of course, as well. Canvey Island is actually Concord Rangers, because Concord Rangers have a higher reputation than Canvey Island. Annoying, but we will simulate 1 year and find out what happens. So when you turn a top 6 into a top 3, yep. Manchester and Liverpool showing their original class in outdoing London's entire merging into one club by still being first and second. It shows you how good Manchester City and Liverpool are in the first place before you even add, well, let's be honest, few players from Man United and Everton to their mix, that they can still see off London by a good solid 6 points on Liverpool's case. But yeah, 103 points for Man City. Turns out when you weaken the rest of the division, it just makes them better. Birmingham and Norwich, which are basically just Aston Villa and Norwich, still 6th and 7th. Still technically newly promoted sides, so that's a bit of a surprise. And after however many years wait it is for Leeds to get back in the Premier League, which I've given them just by virtue of them existing, they're relegated. I gave you a chance, Leeds, And look what you've done. Derby, by the way, shout out to Derby. They were the lowest rated side out of all the ones I bumped up. 14th. Unsurprisingly, though, Wolves and Leicester were the first ones behind. 30 points behind, but behind the Manchester, Liverpool, London situation. Although, admittedly, Burnley, Bournemouth, Newcastle not far behind, or Southampton. And then it's the 7 promoted sides and Sheffield. I mean, come on, Sheffield. By the way, I did notice one curious thing on that final day. Cardiff beat West Brom, 31 points, 28. West Brom at home as well. If they'd won that, they'd have been safe. Well, Stoke went close. My prediction wasn't far off. But, yep, 3 League One sides go back down. Bradford stayed up. Hang on, Bolton stayed up. A little bit of surprise in the Championship there. Reading via playoffs. Blackburn and Nottingham back in the big time. Come on, Lincoln. Gillingham. Walsall and Accrington. No offence, Gillingham, but Scunthorpe were third? I mean, bear in mind, this is still mostly a lot of League One, so the fact that Scunthorpe ended up third is quite impressive, ahead of actual existing League One sides. Southend still doomed. Then Yeovil from the lowest point of the playoff spots, nick in there. Well done. Billericay down. York and Gateshead survive. Well done on both of their fronts there. So London did beat Liverpool in the FA Cup. Just curious. Yeah, okay, well, Nottingham, the best surprise there. Nottingham and Blackburn both got. Blackpool actually got to the quarterfinals. Well done them. And the reverse in the Carabao Cup. Liverpool beat London. Well done them. Swansea nicking into the quarters there, though. Semis there. And the one thing I am actually curious about is how they fare in Europe. It's just dawned on me that I didn't move some of the existing clubs out of Europe first, which I've scrolled down for a reason here. Yeah, understandably, former Chelsea were annihilated, but Liverpool beating Zebra, only one actually reaching the semi-finals. And of course, strictly speaking, actually, we don't have anyone left in that except for Wolves, maybe, so I wonder if they got anywhere. No, they were knocked out by Benfica. So they were the only ones that actually probably did anything in the group stages of the Euro Cup. Obviously, next year it's all sorted out properly. Yeah. What remains of Arsenal and Man United, destroyed. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is the fact, of course, that all the players that were at those other clubs that got merged into others were released on freeze. So there might be a few pickups of the teams below those main 3 now that picked up the players that were former Arsenal, former Chelsea, former Man United. You know, players like Scott McTominay, no longer in those teams, they may have got moved out. I'm looking at this. Obviously, there's a few at those merged clubs that are now out of favour and such. You know, someone like Serge Aurier, third choice right back. I left him in just in case. You know, they might want a third choice right back. Nope, they've sent him out. And I did suspect the Vertonghen might go. Is part of the reason why I left London with quite a few centre backs, because obviously Vertonghen and Alderweireld in the last year of their contracts. Not sure if Alderweireld signed a new one or not in time for this to be affected on the database itself, but obviously Vertonghen runs out. I did suspect that might happen. It's a case of just scrolling through this list and hoping that we find the players that were at those clubs, and I can already see, quite surprisingly, a player that just missed out on the cut for the centre-backs at London. Socrates has ended up at Manchester. Of course he has. Mason Holgate ended up at Bristol, Twanzebe at Leicester, McTominay, Leicester. So these sort of teams directly in that bit just below them has picked them up. Townsend at Bournemouth, I can see that one there. Danny Rose, appropriately, has ended up at Newcastle. That wasn't even done on purpose. Haller's ended up at Norwich. Good pickup for them, actually. Another good striker. Probably part of the reason why they did so well in the end. Yeah, Mark Noble, I can see the bottom here at Cardiff. Issa Diop, of course, big one. Probably one I maybe forgot to look at the potential of. Ended up at West Brom. But not all of them, actually. Not all of them have gone places. David Ray's ended up at Derby. That's a big one. Not all of them ended up here as such. Now, they may have ended up at other major divisions. And yeah, it gets a little bit difficult to track these ones, obviously. But I can see Pedro has ended up at Krasnodar. But it's obviously very difficult to scroll through this and actually find anyone. There's obviously a lot lower level players as well from those other clubs, like, you know, Bristol Rovers and what have you, that have been released into the wild and ended up at clubs similar to those. I can just see El Mohammadi actually there as well, going to Kiev, for instance. But it's hard to really properly track those. Ben Davis, Lille. Actually, Lucas Moura at Monaco. I did notice Monaco picked up, I think it was Eric Dyer as well. Yeah, Eric Dyer. They haven't got a squad. What's happened to Monaco? Don't know what's happened here. I don't know why they've run out of players, but picking up Moura and Dyer. I mean, the easiest way is just trying to remember the players and finding out where they went. Harry Winks, Galatasaray, apparently. But now this is all set out properly, we can see how this affects things. I'm actually intrigued to see how English Premier Division does in terms of the competition reputation as a whole, because, of course, technically it's all slightly lessened because of just the club's reputation within it. I'm interested to see if we're going to end up with sort of a Spanish First Division kind of idea where we've got like a distinct 3 like it is right now, or if that ends up merging a little bit more. Now that obviously Wolves, a team like Wolves is getting Champions League football. Teams that are normally getting European football are going to be getting European football. For instance, I'm very intrigued to see how a team like Norwich does in Europe, actually, considering. I'm also very intrigued to see what this does for England as a whole, as a nation, how well they do in the future as well. I'll be keeping an eye on the World Cups and the Euro Championships as well as a result of this, because, like I said before, with the total London thing, now there's only one major London club. All the other ones still kind of exist, but at lower levels. Now there's only one major London club. They're only going to have one youth intake. Where do all those other good level youth intake players go? Because they're not going to be going to those little clubs, which, you know, anything below Vanarama North and South, they still exist as a proper, and all the ones that were here still exist, but with like 100 reputation. They're nothing clubs anymore. It's going to be intrigued to see how the youth intake kind of shifts across the country. Maybe the ones that from London end up at, say, Norwich, that's not too far away, South Coast perhaps. Maybe they end up at this kind of area, Bristol. Maybe they even move across to Bristol perhaps. Birmingham, a little bit further up, of course, a couple of hours away, but still, don't know. Obviously Manchester, all the ones that end up at two different Manchester clubs are now going to find their way a little bit further out as well. All the ones that are the two Everton and Liverpool clubs, they're going to move out as well. Obviously only one youth take per city as well now. So it's going to be intriguing to see how the dispersion of English talent moves around a bit. Who gets all the good youth intakes now? Where Southampton, of course, tend to have a good youth intake in general, so maybe they'll get a few more, perhaps. It's going to be intriguing. Derby tend to have good youth intakes for some reason. I'm intrigued. Put it this way. Anyway, so 5 years, so 4 more years. We'll simulate 4 more years and find out what happens at the end of the 5th season. That'll be the next video, but we can also look at things a little bit more in depth then. So until then, I'll be putting these up every weekend, by the way, just to give me time to simulate it. And don't be expecting any experiments beyond this one. Perhaps if I think of something, I might do that. But I think I'm going to wait to do any more experiments until I finish the main save as a whole. I just wanted to do this one while I had a thought of it, and obviously while we've got a little bit of extra free time to be sort of tweaking database or what have you. But I think I'll probably hold off on any future experiments until I've done with the York save, just to provide some kind of content while I work out what to do, depending on when that ends, because I've got a feeling it might be ending sooner than I expected it to. Yeah, it's gone well. It's one of those situations where doing well at something, I've just noticed the goal differences. I mean, yeah, Manchester lost one game. 60-60 and then just single-digit goal differences. I've just noticed that. That's fantastic. Until next time, ta-ra.